There was actually a guy, Vetted, I believe. Shout out Vetted.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen a video on this.
And that if we don't return the equipment and the prisoners, there's going to be some bad things happen.
We have prisoners.
Yes. This is what they said on the phone call. And the other guy's like, well, hey, what if we can't get them, to return all the equipment and the people? And the guy that had given the interview, he's like, you don't want to do that.
All right, alleged whistleblower Jason Sands recently just went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he said some things I think we should discuss. So, what do we dive into here? Essentially that the ET, the aliens, right, are upset that we have their things, and they're coming back for them, and we better be ready. And we're, of course, imprisoning some of these alien entities. And that doesn't sound good either. And apparently, there's even some measures that people in the program are willing to go to keep it all silent. Make sure and stay tuned to the end for a very special clip from the Julian Dorey podcast that I've added for context, where coincidentally Vetted gets a shout out. So stay with me until the end. Let's jump in. Here's the first clip. I'll see you on the other side.
So you heard the recording. That's how you found out about this non-human intelligence thing.
Well, it was an active phone call. That's what I did on the red team that I was on for the program, because I'm monitoring for the Air Force. And in this case, I'm monitoring for the program.
Can you say how the conversation went? Like, how did someone bring up non-human intelligence? What was like, was there any discussion before this non-human intelligence of UFOs at all or aliens at all?
Yeah, there was quite a few times. We had a scientist on the team. There was an officer. He was a nuclear scientist, and he was able to give us some insights and stuff like that, because we'd have some really strange things like things that were turning at 90 degrees, and how do you not break that piece of machinery or not kill the occupants? And we were hearing stuff like that, and they had like very technical parameters that I cannot discuss, but they were talking about these, and we'd get the scientists to come and talk to us, and he'd say, oh yeah, that's this, and this.
All right, so stay with me because I have more to that clip. But first, I just want to say that Jason is essentially talking about, going, listening in on a phone call, essentially, right? That was part of what he did out at Area 51 and out for the Air Force in the 90s, right? And it was essentially he could listen in on all these different programs and all these different conversations. And in one of these conversations, he overhears this talk about non-human intelligence, right? And essentially begins to tell that story. Now, I will say the link to the full interview is in the description if you want to check it out. Here's the next clip.
And so how does the conversation go where the non-human intelligence gets brought up?
That was just like the two of them. When I picked up the call and started the recording on it, there was some guy that was there at Right Pat, and apparently he had been talking to this Eben. And he said, up today's session, we got some more information you need to hear about. This is what is going to happen. He says that there's going to be another meeting, and that if we don't return the equipment and the prisoners, there's going to be some bad things happen.
We have prisoners.
Yes. This is what they said on the phone call. And the other guy's like, well, hey, what if we can't get them, to return all the equipment and the people? And the guy that had given the interview, he's like, you don't want to do that. And the guy's like, well, why? He said, if you don't, they're going to be put to death. And I was like, I literally stepped back for a minute, and I was like, what's going on here? So I had to finish out the call. They talked about sundry other things, just stupid stuff.
Can you be a little bit more clear? Like, who's going to be put to death?
The program folks that are responsible for keeping the tech that's not theirs, and also, doing things to these extraterrestrials.
All right, so basically the gist here is Jason is saying that they talked to this Eben, which I'm assuming is this extraterrestrial character, and he's basically saying, again, if we don't return the equipment, right, UFOs, reverse engineered stuff, and the prisoners that we've taken of these entities, right, that bad things are going to happen, and people in the program are going to have to pay for this, right, for hiding this from these entities, right, aliens, essentially, right? So we've got another threat and warning from these beings, right, that if we don't return their stuff and their people, it's not going to be good, right? And let's just take for a moment and assume that this is real, right? Of course they'd be upset, right? Of course they would be upset, and we would do the same thing, a rescue mission, right, to go back in and get people that were imprisoned. If aliens took humans prisoner, wouldn't we do the same thing or attempt it or something? But the fact that they have like a relationship and they're communicating, they're like, hey guys, you better give us our stuff back. I don't know. It sounds so interesting. And this is something Jason's just overhearing. What if that was like a test to see if he would repeat that stuff, right? I don't know. Again, Jason has a lot more stories to tell, and he's come out with a lot of information. Again, he was featured in James Fox's documentary, The Program, and I've had my own sort of, connection with Jason on this podcast, to be honest with you. And it's been quite interesting, to say the least, his coming out and him, telling these stories, right? I do want to play one clip real quick. This is Jason Sands on Julian Dorey's podcast talking, giving a shout out to Vetted, first of all, to me, right? This is how I have a connection. And essentially a part of his story that many people find hard to believe. Take a listen.
There was actually a guy, Vetted, I believe. Shout out Vetted.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen a video on this, I think a couple weeks ago, who apparently at the time had heard through the grapevine of a couple other people he was connected to that you had a story of being ordered to assassinate an alien. Now, this was like at the time shot down or whatever. And then fast forward from April 2024, when that was first like floated by him and he caught backlash for that. Now fast forward to December 2024. The program comes out on the 16th. And I believe like a day later, I forget who it was with. I'm sorry. I'll put the link in description. But you do like a 22-minute interview, I think it was, on YouTube. Who was that with? Do you remember?
I think it was with Digby for now.
Alessi, can you look this up real quick? Jason Sands interview alien assassination, and look for the one that's 22 minutes. I want to give that
And while
guy.
he's looking at that, I'll respond a little bit.
Yeah,
But
please.
Anyway, Vetted had put out the video, but he said something like, I killed a blue alien.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, shit, that is not what I said. Because he was confusing two different things. Because
Who had you said this to, or whatever he was misinterpreting?
I don't know who he talked to behind the scenes, but I did mention it to only one other or two other people.
Okay.
That there was some stuff that I had, some work that I had to do that I don't like talking about because it brings PTSD back. But the other thing was that this blue alien, I was like, no, I didn't kill a blue alien. So I immediately called Vetted and we settled it up and I said, look, that's not right. And I said, can you take it down? Because it's not correct. And then he didn't take it down, but he corrected
did a
himself.
retraction,
But
yes,
that's because
yes.
I contacted
Yes,
him.
yeah.
And we got to know each other. He's a really great guy. And he's also somebody I consider a friend through all this.
Yeah.
He doesn't agree with all my stuff, and I don't care about that. It's not his life.
Yeah,
then
and
I
this is
saw that.
this is the video right here, post-disclosure world. That's who it was who you
yeah.
did this with.
Yeah.
So this is what I want to get at, because you don't say any of this back in April. And when you talked with James and gave the testimony
Right.
on the documentary, you didn't mention any of this. You didn't mention lost time unless that was on the cutting floor, James. You can fill that in.
Yeah, I don't remember about the lost time, but I definitely remember I called Jason. I was like, dude, you are killing me right now. What are
Yeah.
you talking about?
All right.
You want to kill the credibility of all the testimony. I'm already riding the line with you,
Yeah.
this encounter, so.
All right. So and
I was
and-
having a big issue.
yes,
Right.
and you have to
Really
understand
big
this is
issue.
like a
So I can add a little context here. Jason never officially reached out to me during that moment. He did later on in a different moment that we had, but not connected to this moment that they're talking about. In fact, Jason made a public comment about it, and I didn't pull down the video, but nobody asked me to. Right. So I think Jason's getting a few different things confused here. he asked me to take down another video when he went on camera back in late August, right, on a different show with another content creator, put his face on camera, and he hadn't done that yet, and I made a video about that, and so they asked me to take down my video because it included, basically Jason in a on-camera interview, and in the program documentary with James Fox, that was supposed to be his very first on-camera interview. So he did ask me to take down that video, which I did, and then put it back up right after the documentary came out. But that not this video. This other video, they didn't. He just denied it and kind of laughed it off when that initially happened. And to be honest, like, I've never spoken to James like on the phone or Jason, excuse me, on the phone or anything. We've had some private DMs, but very minimal. And yeah, I mean, that's really the gist of our relationship. I've never spoken to him like alone on the phone, again, some DMs, but that's really the gist of it. And I've covered a lot of his stuff on the channel. I'm assuming that's what he's getting at. And yeah, I don't agree with, a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, what do I know, right? It's just proof and evidence is really what I need for anything. But regardless, I've been very fair to Jason, tried to get him on the show, and, that's the gist of it, right? And I was hoping he would come on the show to tell his story about being an alien killer, right? Because I essentially had talked about it already before, got a lot of flack for it for months and months and months till he then came out and told, a similar story, right? And so I kind of thought he would come on my show and do that first. But regardless, it is what it is. So I think Jason's just getting a few different circumstances confused here. But regardless, it's nice to get a shout out on Julian's show. Let's get to the rest of this clip because James Fox is basically, does not have a good reaction on the Julian Dorey podcast here that you're about to see of them, getting ready to talk about this particular part of Jason's story. Take a look.
Crazy claim for the average person like me to hear.
The blue alien's already tough.
That's already tough. Agreed. Yeah. But like when you're like, I was forced to assassinate for the Intergalactic Federation, whatever, it gets to like, all right, what
crazy
the fuck?
Status.
So my first question is, before we get into it, because I want you to explain what this was, what was the decision-making process for you, A, not to share that with James when you testified on the documentary, and B, not to share it in the Twitter spaces when you went public and had a 6-hour forum to share your experience?
Initially, I thought it was bad I didn't want to talk about it for the film because it was something that I did not like to talk about to begin with or even remember. And mainly that I was comfortable talking about other subject matter. However, there are people that are close to me that did get to have more information than even Congress did in certain aspects. And one of them is this particular part of the program that they run that deals with, no kidding, stuff that is cleaning up problems for themselves. And be that human or otherwise, that being the case. So they do have a part of the program and people that do handle that.
In your opinion?
In my opinion.
Okay, let's leave it at that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the kind of thing that I was asked about. Now, was there a thought process when they asked me this? No, they caught me off guard is what happened. Because like I said, the PTSD dealing with some of this crap that goes on inside the program is very hard to handle.
And just so that people have transparency out there, because you have said this publicly, what is it that you explain was the context with this? As in, you received an order from someone at some point that said, you got to shoot this NHI. And
I feel really uncomfortable talking about this because this is a credibility destroyer, in my opinion, and it really bothers me that you're talking about it, and I don't want to be connected to it in any way.
It's going to bring
shape,
back
or form.
Actually,
and I've already told him that.
All right,
so
if
hold you're going to make those claims, I'm walking out the door.
No, I'm not.
I'm sorry.
I have to tell you,
it's already bad enough.
Yeah, because right now we're treading a line where
even if it's true, don't talk about it.
Right, and
not to say that I believe it. It's a credibility killer, and it's horrible.
James, I understand that.
Yeah.
When you interviewed Jason,
he didn't tell me
for
about
the
any
documentary.
of that.
There's none of this there.
No.
You've already described how you went through and vetted it.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect and whatever. No story's perfect with anyone, regardless of who it is.
I don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Okay.
It's something that I would like. It's horrible that it even happened. And I've explained to him, if you're trying to discredit your entire everything, then continue on that path.
Then let me ask this. I will.
I'm really uncomfortable.
All right, listen.
Just so you know.
Out of respect for you, I'm going to refer people to the post-disclosure podcast where that was said.
Yeah.
Okay, we will have the link. Make sure we have the link to that in the description, Alessi.
Yeah.
I'll double check that.
And so to clarify on my side.
Yes. Okay. Why? What made you want?
I was caught totally off guard.
But why did you say it?
Because they asked me. Anybody who knows me knows I'm an honest guy. That I will, if I have a question that I'm given, I will give you at least what I can talk about.
All right, so James is ready to walk out if they talk about that, right? And he sees it as a complete credibility killer to his, Jason's story, his documentary, everything, right? And doesn't really want to discuss that, which is interesting. And I, James saying, well, even if it's true, don't talk about it. Like, I mean, if that's a story, that's a story. I don't know what else to say. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how it is. If that's a story, that's his story. And I appreciate Jason laying it all down, right? But I can also understand James's, position, right? He's going to put him in this documentary, spending a lot of time and effort on it, and then Jason just keeps that to himself and then decides to drop that, during the course of the leading up to the release of this film. And then when the film comes out, he comes out with that story. But Jason has way more other stories, too, that he didn't tell James. Right. There's all kinds of different stories that Jason has told. So, but look, Jason's always been very nice and respectful and courteous. So I have zero problems with Jason and talking to Jason and whatever. People are either going to believe him or not. It's all about proof, not, credibility or this or that, just proof of the claims you're making. So it's really that simple. Good or bad guy or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Courteous, not courteous. Like, is there proof to the things that you're saying? That's really what it should all come down to. So we'll have to wait and see. But this is interesting, right? Are we going to be worried about these ETs coming back to get us, right? And get their things. They want their UFOs and they want their peeps, which I totally understand. So are people in the program going to face repercussions from the aliens? It's not us they have to worry about. They have to worry about the aliens. I mean, at this point, it is what it is. You might as well come out and get the help of the rest of humanity to help you, right? We can help work together as a species, right? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. We'll see you in the next video. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep.